Can Ravish Kumar or Karan Thapar ever be like Godi Media? Figures such as Ravish Kumar, Karan Thapar, Ajit Anjum, and others exemplify journalists associated with this questioning approach. On the other side are journalists and media outlets that seem more comfortable supporting, defending, or amplifying the narratives of those in power. Critics refer to this environment as Godi Media. Observe what is unfolding around us. It often seems as though the country is engaged in a silent conflict, not necessarily with weapons, but through competing narratives and opinions. This includes headlines, social media, speeches, debates, and contrasting realities. Amidst this chaos, journalism itself seems sharply divided. Some journalists continue to challenge those in authority, acting as watchdogs. Meanwhile, others appear increasingly aligned with the ruling powers, often labeled Godi Media, outlets that sit comfortably in the lap of authority. They flock together, creating a chorus so loud that dissent is drowned out. The divide extends beyond journalism to include politicians, intellectuals, artists, public figures, young voices, educators, and even within institutions and society at large. However, the clearest manifestation of this divide is in journalism. This is because journalism holds a special role in democracy. It is meant to watch, question, investigate, challenge, and hold those in power accountable. It is also called the fourth pillar of democracy. When journalists seem to take vastly different paths, the contrast becomes stark and impossible to overlook. On one side are journalists who continually challenge government policies, decisions, and actions. They scrutinize authority, interview difficult subjects, investigate, ask uncomfortable questions, and often persist despite unwelcome consequences. Figures such as Ravish Kumar, Karan Thapar, Ajit Anjum, and others exemplify journalists associated with this questioning approach. On the other side are journalists and media outlets that seem more comfortable supporting, defending, or amplifying the narratives of those in power. Critics refer to this environment as Godi Media. The distinction isn't merely about supporting or opposing a political party, but involves a recurring pattern. One side asks, what is the government doing and should it be questioned? While the other seeks to defend or amplify the government's narrative. When these two approaches exist simultaneously, the public receives very different perspectives of the same country. Now let's look beyond journalism. Indian politics appears deeply fractured, with politicians sometimes uniting despite previous opposition. Parties split, individuals switch allegiances, some align with the ruling power, others remain in opposition. Similar divisions exist among intellectuals like Amartya Sen, Ramachandra Guha, Prakash Raj, and Sonam Wangchuk, who come from diverse backgrounds but often take contrasting stances on major debates. Young voices and digital creators such as Dhruv Rathi, Kunal Kamra, Kansa, Neha Rathod, and Abhijit Dipkai have built their own audiences and approaches. They have noticed that the master and its lapdogs prefer a single chorus, one song sung in unison, praising authority and silencing dissent. But these young voices refuse to harmonize with propaganda. They challenge, question, and provoke thought, reminding the audience that democracy thrives not in uniformity but in diversity of opinion. While their professions, personalities, opinions, and methods differ, a recurring pattern emerges. Some frequently question authority, while the lapdogs and others support it. This consistent polarity across groups prompts the question, what drives this pattern? Let's consider an analogy from nature. Some animals are active mainly during the day, known as diurnal, while others are active at night, called nocturnal. Their environment's rhythms and sensory systems differ. What helps one animal thrive in daylight may not work for another at night. A nocturnal animal isn't a failed daytime animal, nor is a daytime animal a failure just because it isn't active at night. Both have adapted beautifully to the environment they are born into. They simply have different ways of navigating the same world. The earth remains the same, but their experiences of it differ. Now, think of humans. We live in the same country, witness the same political events, hear the same speeches, and experience the same economy under the same government. Despite this, people perceive reality in vastly different ways. One sees danger, another sees stability. One perceives oppression, another sees order. One notices courage, another sees irresponsibility. One views a journalist asking vital questions, another sees an attack on the nation. How can the same event evoke such contrasting reactions? This is where my interest is piqued. We often describe these differences in ideological terms, such as left versus right, government versus opposition, nationalist versus liberal, conservative versus progressive, supporter versus critic. While these labels can be helpful, they don't fully answer the deeper question. They indicate where people stand, but not why they repeatedly choose to stand there. What causes one person to regularly question authority, while another consistently defends it? Why is one individual comfortable standing alone, while another seeks group protection? Why does one tolerate criticism, whereas another attacks the critic? These patterns seem to recur, suggesting they might not be mere isolated choices, but rather driven by something much deeper within humans. This isn't about claiming to understand what's happening inside another person's mind. We can only observe what they reveal through their behavior, communication, repeated stances, reactions to criticism, responses to authority, and the people they defend or attack. The issues they highlight or avoid also provide clues. When these patterns repeat over years, a recognizable pattern emerges. While this pattern may not reveal everything, it can tell us something about the individual, perhaps enough to prompt a deeper question. Could there be some mechanism shaping who we are, how we respond, and what makes us respond differently? If so, the political divides we see might reflect more than just politics. They could stem from something deeper within human nature. This is where things get particularly intriguing. It seems we are increasingly living within conflicting narratives. One narrative urges, observe government actions and question them. Another insists, observe government actions and support them. One side emphasizes failures, while the other highlights successes. One questions authority, and the other questions those who question authority. They amplify the government's narrative, redirect scrutiny toward the opposition, and belittle or humiliate critics. Each side believes they are uncovering the truth. As these opposing voices grow louder, it becomes more difficult for ordinary people to see beyond these competing stories. We start choosing a side, defending it, and attacking the other. Over time, these narratives become intertwined with our identities. Possibly, we're no longer just consuming information. We end up becoming confused and lost in their narratives. We might be witnessing a political divide, but it could also stem from underlying ideological differences driven by factors like ambition, fear, opportunity, and power. Beneath these, there might be two fundamental ways humans respond to their environment, two distinct patterns of communication, interpretation of danger, and pursuit of security. If so, the terms watchdog and lapdog might transcend political labels, serving as metaphors for these divergent human survival strategies. What does this imply? Could humans be born with different innate mechanisms that shape how we think, communicate, behave, and react to authority? Might these mechanisms cause one person to lean toward independence while another seeks collaboration? This could explain why people in the same country, under the same government, sometimes seem to live in entirely different worlds. We explore this further in part 2, as the external divide may originate from something much deeper inside. I'm Lawrence Fernandez for Living with Freedom. Look at the world, question the pattern, understand the human being,